just a moment to confirm the live stream has started. Just a moment to confirm the live stream has started. I think I'm hearing the echo from whoever's monitoring YouTube.
You're on live, Paul.
Okay, great. And turn off the sound on that monitoring device so we don't get that echo. You're on live, Paul. Okay, great. And turn off the sound on that monitoring device so we don't get that echo.
I don't know what my.
Just take it out of the room. Okay. So, Armand, I believe we're ready for you to call the meeting to order, sir.
Okay, thank you, and welcome everybody. The meeting's called to order. So I'm going to take the roll.
Mike, unmute. Mike May, you're
Mike May
muted.
has.
Mike, you're still
Can you
muted.
hear?
Go ahead, please.
I'm hearing
Go ahead.
reverb. All right. Call of the roll. Armand Budish,
Here.
Jack Schron,
Here.
Mayor Katie Gallagher.
Here.
I'm hearing.
It,
All right.
it's not our devices.
Armand Budish. Here. Jack Schron. Here. Mayor Katie Gallagher.
Here.
Yeah, get that second device out of here. Get that out of here.
Daniel O'Malley. I don't think that's it. It's not our device.
Daniel O'Malley.
I don't know what's going on.
Mike, I'll continue calling the names. You can mute yourself. Just make a note of this.
All right,
next on the
fine,
list-
very good.
Next on the list, David Ebersol, absent.
Here.
David Ebersol's here. Great. Mark Burns. I believe Mark is here.
He was on a minute ago.
He's on mute.
Oh, he's on. He's here. He's just the picture of a telephone.
All right. Mark Burns, let's note that Zoom shows that Mark is attending by telephone. Beju Shah,
Here.
Brian Hall. Not here at the moment. And William Friedman.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chair, a quorum is present.
Very good. I trust everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from February 26th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Seconded by Katie Gallagher, I believe. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Up or something? Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Next item on here, Paul, is state of Cuyahoga County's COVID-19 recovery discussion. What
Mr.
do you have
Chairman,
anticipated there?
Mr. Chairman, just for purposes of the record, public comments are at least sorry.
You are right. I
You're
skipped.
not used to,
I'm sorry.
you're not used to this side of the aisle. I just have to.
You're right about that. Mr. Herdig, was there any public comment?
Yes. Thank you. To the chair, no public comments were received. The comments were invited by email and none were received.
Okay,
Sorry.
now we can
So-
go to the state of the recovery.
Yes. If I
Paul?
may briefly, we received feedback from one commission member during the interviews I did recently that the commission wanted to have a little more opportunity and time for direct discussion of some current issues during the meetings. And one of the key points we thought was going to be important at this particular time is commentary on where we stand in terms of our COVID-19 recovery. We are going to have, during the meeting, several short presentations on specific areas. You can see in your agenda, we're going to have a short presentation on small business supports, on innovation, workforce. But we first wanted to offer the commission members themselves the opportunity to weigh in with comments at this particular moment where we are in terms of our recovery. So that's what we hope to invite in this first part of the agenda.
Good. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to make about either what they did, what their organization was involved in, or in general, what your views of how the recovery has gone so far?
Armin, I'm glad to be able to join. I was having some difficulty getting the right invite. Thanks, Beju. I won't offer much comment because I think I did in our last meeting about working with the economic development team and partners around the recovery funds that we got out to minority businesses. But I would echo what I said in the last meeting, that there was just a tremendous effort of cooperation. I know there would have been more funds desired had they been available, but I think all partners came together in a really great way to try to rescue and support as many small businesses as we could.
I'll just throw in, thank you, Brian. You know, with the county executive and the county council working well together, we committed all of our money from the CARES Act, which we were required to do by the end of last year. Subsequently, we were given an extension, but they didn't give the extension until basically all the money was committed. We focused on a variety of things, including small businesses. As you mentioned, Brian, I think we supported with grants 1,500 small businesses, which included almost 170 restaurants. We focused on the fact that a lot of people weren't able to pay their rent. So we put $20 million into rental assistance. That money, by the way, went to the landlords, but for the benefit of the renters. So it had really a double impact, helping the renters stay in their homes and helping landlords survive. And we are in the process of putting another $10 million out for rental assistance. And we did, and a lot of what we did, by the way, was with working closely with the city of Cleveland. I see David on the call. So, you know, we coordinated our rental assistance. We coordinated our small business assistance with the city of Cleveland. We worked well with the city of Cleveland on these matters. We worked with them well on the digital divide. So we put out something like 11,000 laptops and hotspots and getting people access. The city also worked with us on that, or we worked with them, and together we multiplied what we were able to do. So anyhow, I can go through. I went through a lot of this at my state of the county last week, which I hope you all paid very close attention to. You know, I'm happy to go through it again or answer any questions people have. I see Katie, Mayor Gallagher on the line. We put money out for the cities that we had at the end. I think we did a lot to keep the county rolling during the pandemic.
I'd have to say, as far as from my viewpoint, speaking of your state of the county, I thought you did a really nice job. But specifically when we're talking about COVID recovery, I thought one of the follow-up questions was probably very important to this commission, and that is really being transparent on the use of the funds for the American recovery. And I know it's difficult, we make these decisions internally and we typically see those initiatives, but to have some kind of forum where or point on the website where people could provide some kind of feedback in a little bit more open way, and maybe showing how the money is going to be spent.
Well, let me answer that two ways. First of all, for the CARES Act, everything we spent was totally transparent. Went through county council, was, we talked about it, we put it on the website. We had everything out there. There was no hidden secrets for the CARES Act money. And we hope to do even more with the ARPA money. You're absolutely right, Mayor. It's important that we get a community involvement. We're looking to get leadership involvement. I've already spoken to Mayor Jackson about how we might coordinate and leverage funds. I've spoken to Lieutenant Governor Houston and Governor DeWine about possibly leveraging, and they were both interested. We do plan to have a lot of communication. We have a little more time since it's not quite as urgent as it was during the CARES Act.
We're going to have a specific area where we're going to talk about that though, Armin.
What was that?
When we get down to potential uses for the American Rescue Plan funds, are you going to go into more specificity on that?
Not a lot, but a little bit more. I can do it now if you'd prefer, but and these are my thoughts right now. These are not with council or through working with the cities or the governor or anybody else. But in my view, our first step, of course, is to make sure we understand the rules, which came out about 2 weeks ago, maybe. There's a lot of questions that were raised by the draft rule and the frequently asked questions that were put out, and some key ones, because if we don't know, key areas, then it limits what we can do in other areas. So we are working with our federal lobbyist, Squire Patton Boggs, to get answers. We're working with the National Association of Counties to get answers, and we should. It's what we did with the CARES Act, and it's what we'll do here is continue to make sure we get our questions answered. My personal idea would be to use a portion of the funds for a budget stabilization to make sure that we can continue to do the services that the county is expected to do, whether it be health and human services or public safety or economic development. We have to make sure we continue to have a balanced, stable budget. Second is to protect the health and safety of the community, as we did during CARES vis-a-vis the pandemic. So continue to do what's necessary with respect to personal protective equipment and small business assistance and rental assistance and the like. And then the third area is it would be, I would love to use some of the funds for what I would describe as lasting major transformative projects that will have more impact than just momentarily. So those are the three general areas if I had to throw them out there. But as Mayor Gallagher said, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of working with others to make sure we're going in the right direction.
I would suggest that we look at perhaps the model that was used by the state of Ohio when we received the 200+ millions of dollars on the Clean Ohio Fund, in which projects of that nature became a competitive process to find out the best and brightest of those. And we created the state created a commission at that point in time, and a bipartisan commission with business and labor and elected officials all to review it. So it did not become political aspects as far as what was going on in the environmental area. It became truly a competitive process, and the best rose to the top. I don't know that you ever were on the Clean Ohio Commission, but I know that other members of the county council were on there back when their legislative days, and they found it to be an excellent way in which it took a lot of the politics out and kept it right to whatever those projects were that were the best for the state funds. And it was, ironically, it's about the same amount of money we're talking about, a little over $200 million.
Mhm.
It also,
Okay, thank you.
it also got a timing on it, so it didn't look like there was not a rush to spend it all within a particular time frame. You used it to smooth it out there, and a lot of those projects had a secondary impact. I mean, the ultimate long-term success for the county would be a job, and so economic development, I really believe, should be someplace high on the list as far as what we look at. If you look at what we did with the Gojo project in Maple Heights, that it would be a classic way in which you could use it and become a win-win out there, because it created the Perel table formula for cleaning tables. Same time, it looks like it's going to create 400 permanent jobs. So it's a win-win out there.
Great, agreed.
So if I can offer some comments, Armin, just some thoughts. I think it's really important what you noted at the beginning. There's an advocacy element. If I think about this in sequence, there are some rules. We've noted rules that were proposed by the federal government that would constrain the flexibility of whether it's the county or other local governments to use the dollars in a flexible way, that we need to make sure that we advocate collectively for, to ensure we have the greatest amount of latitude within the approved purposes. And so that's something we're paying attention to at the partnership. We're certainly working with a number of groups, including the county, as it relates to uses of dollars for addressing the digital divide, and some of the constraints that are currently being proposed by the federal government that we need to hopefully get reversed, so that the county and others can choose to use the dollars in that respect, if that's the desires of the government. The second thing, in addition, Jack, to what you said around process, I think there's an interim step in terms of how do we create structures for whatever purpose that attract additional capital, whether it's private capital, additional public capital from the state, as you noted, Armand, or from the federal government. But we really ought to be thinking about leveraging, to use your term, or amplifying the dollars that are coming to the county. And I think taking that step to get creative minds around the table about how we do that will help us make the dollars hopefully have a greater impact, perhaps even a lasting impact, if we can create a sustainable structure. And then I think, I echo your comments, Jack, in terms of having a good process by which we allocate dollars that is looking at it on the merits of whatever type of project. That is the right way to go with it.
And just to
Go ahead, Jay.
just to piggyback on Beiju's comments, the leverage factor within the Clean Ohio Fund was that it scored in the process if the dollars were leveraged. So if you took $1 from the public sector and you brought in $4, the project scored higher than it did if you were looking for a grant, the public funds. And so that was truly a leverage, and that's how you got almost a 5-to-1 multiplier if you look at the impacts of the Clean Ohio Fund.
And in terms of leveraging, I mentioned leveraging with that we did with the city of Cleveland. But in this case, with the ARPA money, cities all over Cuyahoga County received, in some cases, very significant amounts of money. And I'm looking forward to see whether there's an opportunity for all of us to leverage together. I've also spoken with Beiju about leveraging with the business community. And as I said, I talked to the state. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do exactly what you're talking about.
Jack and Beju, I would just add one other element to what you described, and that is in that process, as we're thinking about what we want to invite people to propose and the leverage factor, that we've made some decisions about priorities. Jack, you said, it should equal jobs. Are there other priorities, so that we're inviting people or organizations to propose around a set of priorities that we've got some regional agreement on, and so that priority 1 may score higher than priority 2 or priority 3 as another element to that scorecard.
And that's where the process comes into play, where you're right. If you get the process correct, it makes the procedure so much easier.
Mr. Chairman,
Just,
if there are no additional commission comments immediately, we do have some short presentations prepared, which might spark additional discussion. So it'd be the pleasure of the chair if we want to continue to those.
That'd be great. Let's do it.
Okay. First, commission members, I want to set the context here. A year ago, when this commission endorsed what essentially was a short-term 1-year COVID recovery plan, that was our annual update of the 5-year economic development plan. There were 3 main action items to be done in the short term. One was to improve our system for small business supports. One was to continue to improve our support for innovation. And the third was to continue to our workforce work with a special focus on getting folks back to work as we hopefully recovered from COVID. A year later, as part of our assessment of how we did, we've invited experts in each of these areas to come and give brief talks, which in turn may spark some further discussion by the commission in terms of how we assess we've done in these 3 areas. So the first one is Shoshana Duckworth of the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, who's going to speak briefly about how our small business support network has functioned during this COVID year. Go ahead, Shoshana.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone else for having me. So as Paul said, I'm Shoshana Duckworth, Director of the Small Business Development Center at Urban League of Greater Cleveland. And I'm just going to briefly just discuss the efforts that we have made and what we have done in our small business community, not only through the Small Business Development Center, but also in collaboration with our other partners. So if you're not that familiar with the Small Business Development Center, what we do is we provide technical assistance to small businesses, helping them start, sustain, and grow throughout all of Cuyahoga County. We do this through implementation of strategic programming, one-on-one business advisory services, and of course, collaboration with our partners. We're funded in part by SBA and the National Urban League. This year alone, with everything going on with the pandemic, we have been able to service approximately 950 small businesses. So these are businesses who are looking to sustain, grow, or even just start a new business. About half of those businesses were businesses who we have assisted with not only accessing CARES Act or Recovery Act funding, but assisting them with qualifying. So a lot of these small businesses were businesses who maybe did not understand the application process or just didn't understand how to get access to that funding. Through that, in collaboration with the county, we also have worked closely with our Business Growth Collaborative. We have an ecosystem and a support system that we have a natural synergy. But with the BGC, we're able to better implement those programs and assist with navigating more effectively with meeting the needs of entrepreneurs and small business owners. Through the BGC, the county, as you guys have already mentioned, the leadership has done a great job of implementing numerous rounds of funding to assist small businesses who may have closed their doors if it wasn't for this funding. In addition to that, all of the technical assistance that we provide and the funding that the county has assisted with the recovery of small businesses, and then also our UBIS loan fund. Without the support, we won't be able to do what we're doing out there in the community. Without the support of the leadership, without the funding that we have had available through the county and our network of support through the ecosystem, we wouldn't be able to do that without it. So with that being said, it's very important that we not only continue to implement all of these different programs and all of these different efforts, but we continue to work together at it, because the only way that we're going to be most effective is that if we continue to work together. That is pretty much.
Thank you, Shoshana. I'd invite any comments or questions from the commission.
I would just mention that the Urban Link's been a great partner with the county, and we appreciate the good work you're doing there.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
have
for your leadership.
I have a question, if there's none immediately. Can you talk, Shoshana, about some of the work that the Urban League has done, not only in the city of Cleveland, but in other communities, perhaps Inner Ring or other communities around Cuyahoga County, in supporting your small businesses?
So we not only support Cleveland, we support all of Cuyahoga County. Okay, so our footprint covers Cuyahoga County, all of the county. That number right there, that approximately 950 small businesses, those are not just Cleveland businesses, those are businesses throughout the county. So we're here as a resource to all of the small businesses throughout the county.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no immediate questions, and Shoshana, I invite you to stay with us as there may be a second period of discussion. I would then turn to our second topic, which is support for innovation. And as I do this, I want to recognize that we have here at this meeting the leader of the Cleveland Innovation Project, now doing a different job, Mr. Baiju Shah. And I consciously did not invite Baiju to give the short update today, because I think that the assessment of where we are in Cleveland Innovation process deserves a longer and better prepared discussion at a later date. Instead, I've asked Ray Leach to speak briefly on a couple of significant things that Jumpstart has begun to do over the past year as one aspect of the innovation work that is going forward. So I turn this now to Ray in that context.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks to everybody on the call today. The two initiatives I'm going to speak to today are really innovation-related initiatives that have been kicked off in the last 60 days or so. The first is a brand new partnership between Jumpstart and NASA Glenn. This is an initiative that's funded by Cuyahoga County and the Ohio Third Frontier. So we kicked off this program officially with NASA in April, and the kickoff went very well. We were working closely with NASA to define a detailed process and a set of roles and responsibilities for not only NASA, but Jumpstart's analysts and due diligence experts, as well as subject matter experts from the community, including Nottingham SPERC, who signed off to partner with Jumpstart in the county and NASA in this effort. So while we are at Jumpstart anticipating investigating 15 to 20 unique technologies invented at NASA, the entire NASA system nationally, but NASA Glenn has a unique and important role to play related to the commercialization of these technologies. So we're anticipating we're going to be investigating 15 to 20 of these technologies each year. We've already identified the first 6 technologies that we're going to do a deep dive on, and we're already heavily engaged in the first 3. So the goals and objectives of this deep dive and screening process is to determine which of these technologies have the most significant commercial application and how that commercial application can result in significant private sector investment in these technologies through company formation and, most importantly, job creation here in Cuyahoga County. So we're really excited that this partnership is going to result in hundreds of millions of dollars of private sector investment in technologies that currently might be in the halls of NASA Glenn or in the NASA system, but have not yet been commercialized. So I think one of the things that we're the most excited about is the opportunity to maximize the commercial potential of innovation more broadly. In other words, doing a better job with institutions, for organizations like Jumpstart and the economic development ecosystem to do a better job working closely with institutions, including CASE, the Cleveland Clinic, Metro, the university hospitals, and of course, NASA. So very early days. We're not quite 60 days into the project, but we're very encouraged, and we'll be reporting back to Paul and the team on a quarterly basis. The second project I wanted to talk about was the new Jumpstart Next Roman numeral 2 or Next 2 fund. So this is a for-profit fund focused on companies that are raising $5 to $10 million in their current stage of development. So these are companies that are a little bit further along than the kinds of companies Jumpstart has quote unquote traditionally invested in that are maybe raising less than $1 million. This Next 2 fund, which Jumpstart recently received a $5 million loan from Cuyahoga County, was originally envisioned to be a $30 million fund. We now anticipate it'll end up being between $40 and $50 million. So the interest in participation in this fund has been substantially stronger than we had originally anticipated. So we're excited that there'll be even more dollars to invest in Cuyahoga County founded tech startups via this fund. Along with the formation of this fund, we are going to have our first close in the month of June. In other words, we'll begin to invest out of this fund in the next 30 to 45 days. And we have already identified our first portfolio client company, which is a Cleveland-based software company in the healthcare industry. It's raising a $7 to $8 million Series A round. And our fund will be anticipate we'll be investing between $1.5 million and $2 million in this company here in the next 45 days. So with this $40 to $50 million fund, we won't know the final number till probably the end of calendar 2020. We're anticipating that we'll be investing in 6 to 10 total companies, maybe 15 across the entire fund, but we expect that a majority of the companies we'll be investing in will be headquartered in Cuyahoga County, and that this $40 million will leverage $400, $500, $600 million of private sector investment in these firms in Cuyahoga County over the next 5 to 10 years, and of course, generate hundreds of new jobs in the county over that period of time. So these are our two most recent initiatives, both receiving significant support from Cuyahoga County that we think will make, and leveraging, of course, the private sector and other funders that will make a huge impact here in the county.
If I could just comment briefly, Paul, do you mind?
Mr. Chairman, please proceed.
Okay, so Ray, thank you. That was great. It's really exciting what Jumpstart's doing in the community generally, and our opportunities to work with Jumpstart in particular. The NASA project that you talked about first, I just as a side, I remember going to visit the visitor center at NASA with my kids, ages ago. And at that time, they had their exhibit of things that had been created by NASA and then commercialized, in many cases, completely different than what NASA intended initially for that project. And I see Dave nodding his head. It's exciting what, and Nottingham Spurk, I know Jack knows them well, does the same thing. They take something and turn it into something completely different with a lot of benefit to the community. So, I remembered that, I think it was Ray and the people from Nottingham and GCP, which I think it was Joe Roman, had some folks at our first meeting, talked about how we can, and we had NASA there, talked about how we could commercialize some of this stuff. And the first step, of course, is evaluating it and making decisions, which I am totally incapable of doing. But Jumpstart and Nottingham have a unique capability to do that. So the long and short of it is that this is what came out of that. Jumpstart and Nottingham and GCP have agreed to be very involved, and I appreciate that a lot. And I do think there's a lot of possibilities for the commercialization of NASA patents. When we met with them, they indicated that a lot of their patents get commercialized, and generally, almost uniformly, the businesses, the commercialization went to other locations around the country because we weren't a player in that. Now we will be. So I'm excited about having those companies here, which Jack is always saying, you want the manufacturing here, you want to create it here. And I think we have the ability to do that. And in terms of the other fund, this is the second time the county's partnered with Jumpstart in that kind of a project where we made a loan. First time we were able to get all of our money back in short order because of the exit that Jumpstart had with one of the portfolio. It was Jack's raising his hand and has a smile. It was very exciting that happened. Jack, you want to say something about that?
Well, the only comment was that Ray was very kind to include that in as a exit activity. So there was an event, in which case, if the event took place while we were still the funds out there, that they would actually pay back all the monies that we had provided. And Ray, congratulations to you on that very success. That is not quite the same thing in this next round, but it's pretty darn close. And so we're thrilled that we've got a vehicle similar to that in this next round also. And it is my understanding that even though NASA has developed all these great technologies in Northeastern Ohio, it's my understanding, Ray, that we have yet to find a successful one that's been launched out of that stayed in Northeastern Ohio. So,
and yeah, that's correct. So we're really excited, and of course, these technologies are incredibly compelling and world changing. So how do we convert that innovation to jobs and wealth here is really what this is all about.
So that was the only comment I wanted to add. I think it's very exciting what you're doing.
Just pausing for a moment for any other questions. The executive actually anticipated mine, which was going to be, what can the ecosystem do to try to retain this innovation here in Cuyahoga County as we support these innovators, both the NASA ones and the next two ones. So Ray, is there anything additional you would ask the ecosystem to do to provide greater support to keep these growing companies here?
Well, I think perhaps as it connects to the American Rescue Plan resources and this existing partnership with the state of Ohio, we are in a great position in that the state of Ohio has made significant commitments to the innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem of Cuyahoga County and Northeast Ohio, and the ability to connect resources, but the Third Frontier requires match. So we often are in scenarios, including now, where the Third Frontier is interested in doing even more in the county. And Jumpstart specifically is very focused on doing even more to benefit Black, Hispanic, female tech entrepreneurs in Cuyahoga County and Northeast Ohio in general. So I think as one looks at the American Rescue Plan resources and its focus on small business, but particularly its focus on socially and economically disadvantaged residents, business owners in Northeast Ohio, I think we have a great opportunity to leverage right out of the box the ARP monies that could be in the domain of the city or the county with the state of Ohio, with dollars that are completely separate from ARP that are in the domain of the Third Frontier, which Jumpstart is accountable and responsible for. Long story short, we have more money from the state than we have match. matching monies. Oftentimes we're in that scenario over the course of the next handful of years through 2024, the timeline of ARP. So we look forward to dialoguing with this committee and leadership at both the city and the county to optimize how to leverage these state dollars in general, but specifically to advance socially and economically disadvantaged Cuyahoga County business owners.
So, Mr. Chairman, if there are no further comments at this time, we would then move on to the third short presentation. And this is, again, is in the area of what's been done in the workforce system over the past year. And to speak to this, Frank Brickner, who's the director of the Ohio Means Jobs Cleveland Cuyahoga Center.
Good afternoon. Ohio Means Jobs is the public workforce system. We assist both individuals seeking employment as well as employers looking to hire to connect them. During COVID, we really wanted to emphasize career training. It was an opportunity for us to say, hey, this is your chance to learn new skills, to be employed in those occupations with good career prospects. So we really emphasize that. Our funding is federal funding. It comes on a July to June cycle. And through this year, we have trained 760 adults so far for training, and about 500 of them in healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. The prior fiscal year, we only did 200 in healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. So from our perspective, that was really positive. How did we do that? There are really two initiatives that help spark the growth in career training in those areas. One was we wanted to have good relationships with the sector intermediaries. We have a good relationship with Magnet. Magnet got a manufacturing program, curriculum, employer designed, that employers at the back end said, if individuals go through this program, we will hire them when they're complete. We are all behind that. We are funding cohorts of individuals for training. And at the beginning, it's been young adults as well as individuals with reentry. We're looking to grow that. We are also looking at our relationship with Tri-C, who is the sector intermediary for healthcare. We are looking at, once again, the major healthcare players, University Hospitals, Metro, all Cleveland Clinic have said, if we can get individuals to go through this pathway, we will hire them. And we are looking at how we can be involved to fund that initiative also. So that's one area to help spur on individuals going through career training. The second is we are approached for the Ohio to Work initiative. Would we like to be, a participating partner? And we enthusiastically said yes. And it's not just Ohio Means Jobs, it's also Goodwill Industries and Urban League. And, it really amplifies what we do. For example, our dollars go so far with career training, and some of the career training is very expensive beyond what Ohio Means Jobs can fund. So using our funds with some of the loan opportunities, forgivable loan opportunities through Ohio to Work, we're able to get more individuals into software coding, and they are getting jobs. We are also looking at partnering additional training at Tri-C, Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, in healthcare and manufacturing opportunities, and we will really sponsor and move people into that training. The other thing that really we're trying to enhance is our career coaches to understand as individuals come to our doors, to assess them, to really say, oh, your talents may translate into these opportunities here with maybe a little training. So Ohio to Work brought an assessment piece that our career coaches are using as we talk to individuals. And, Ohio to Work also brought employers to us that maybe we didn't have a relationship with. So it allows us to work with them. The good news is, we are training more people. The not so good news is we got to get more people off the sidelines. We can help them. Our numbers are down, our doors are open again. We are partnering with the library system, both the city and the county library system. We will have a presence in a couple job and family service centers. But, there's more jobs now that, we are training more people, but we have to bring in more talent. That's, an initiative, and we have to look at doing that moving forward. But from my perspective, we have been more successful putting more people into training in those careers that offer employment, critical to this community. I welcome any questions.
Frank, thanks for that presentation. The numbers that you gave, the 200 to 500
Yes.
in the IT and healthcare sector, what were the total numbers overall for all sectors?
760 so far this fiscal year, which ends June 30th, which, and a good number of those individuals are going in. Besides those three sectors, they may become CDL, truck drivers. We see some business, marketing, management, but predominantly over 2/3 are going into healthcare. Is our biggest. 275 so far are going into healthcare careers.
And the last fiscal year, the total number was, I know you said 200 in those three sectors.
In total was about 500.
So you're already 260 jobs
Yes.
over last year's total.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Frank, you talked about the importance of getting people off the sidelines. I was just talking to a friend today that owns 5 restaurants in town. He was, they were open every day of the year prior to the pandemic, long hours, obviously closed or during the pandemic, and now reopening. He wants to reopen all 5 stores as much as possible. He's limited right now by inability to get workers. How do you get people off the sidelines?
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think there have been daycare challenges for many individuals as daycares open up more. And, human nature, there are people, because we get lists from the state about people on unemployment. So we're trying to be aggressive. Hey, we're here, we can assist you. I think there'll be more a sense of urgency with individuals as the extended unemployment ends. We've been talking to the pastors and ministers group. We're doing more outreach. We'll be at more events. We do virtual career fairs. We're trying. I hope that this is temporary, that we will be seeing more people through our doors now that we are open up, and that maybe some of the apprehensions people had about going to the world of work are getting, resolved.
Frank, do those numbers that you just recited include any of the individuals coming through the Second Chance program in the manufacturing sector partnership? Because I know we had a national broadcast this morning that I was on, and we have placed 52 people out of the Second Chance program as part of that workforce under the sector partnership. And
Absolutely.
numbers.
Yes, they are included in our numbers. We are funding those individuals as they're going through that training towards employment.
I thought so. And so I want to make sure, Brian, you heard that, this program, we've got 52 people who were formerly incarcerated that are now placed in manufacturing jobs, and 100% of them have not had one day of recidivism.
It's great.
We have a current cohort right now of 14 individuals re-entry going through right now.
Right, that's our fourth cohort. Because those are of the success, those of us in the manufacturing sector have defined this as it's no longer a pilot program. We want to go after the full 3,000 people are coming back to the county every year.
Frank, two questions for you. So first, are there other sectors that you're considering around sector partnerships, given what you're seeing in terms of either employer demand or worker interest? And the second is there anything in the work that you can speak to that relates to upskilling incumbent workers, whether it's for manufacturing or other sectors?
Yes, we are participating with the Greater Cleveland Partnership about the IT sector. That's critical to us. I mean, I think we mentioned how we are funding some cohorts and software development. That's not the only, web design and others. So we are we hope that our partnership with the GCP will help us, be able to lead to more that we could do something like we did with Magnet and Tri-C. We could do something with GCP there. I know that construction could be one down the line. We are looking, there's a lot of jobs that may not be one of the three, but we are looking at construction programs, funding that and enhancing that. Incumbent worker, we can do some of that. Our funding's limited and it requires an employer match, typically about 50%, but we can help a workforce, an employer who says, hey, I'm at risk of downsizing or I need to upskill my workforce. We can help them with that and the costs of that training. We haven't done a lot of it. It's limited to 10% of our funding, but that could be a good employer service as we move out of the pandemic also. I know we've been in contact with someone like Manufacturing Works, for instance, about how we can assist them.
Thank you.
Hey, Jack, just so you know, I brag about the manufacturing sector work frequently as we talk about DEI. I mean, you guys have really, the manufacturing leadership team has embraced this idea, and I think it's a model. So we talked about it in CIP, we talked about it with the IT sector, we talked about it in other places in construction as well. And it's partly I think the way the owners have embraced, at least from my perspective, I'm not directly involved, but the way owners like you have embraced this idea as good for your business as well as good for the region. And as you said, it's no longer a pilot, it's part of the way you do business. So I and others have acknowledged that frequently.
And we're hoping that the other two sectors, Baiju, to your point, will pick up and run with this also, because we think that it'll help fill the delta on the medical community and on the IT.
Sure.
Positions in places that if they follow the model, I think they'll find that this model works. The first thing we do is to check the box on an awful lot of employment applications, that we were shocked at how many companies still had that in the manufacturing sector. We got that eliminated probably in the first 6 months, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the medical community still has that on some of their boxes.
Sure.
One other question I was going to ask, Frank, this might be for Paul. We heard about the Skill Up program, which goes to Baiju's question about incumbent workers. Is there a connection between that Skill Up work we're doing and the work you're doing, Frank?
Paul, feel free to jump in, but I can say, we talk to the same employers. So it's like, let's be more efficient. So I know Paul's team, Skill Up, and us with GCP talk about how do we engage employers? How do we market each other's services? So I think that's one way that, when our employer team may go to a business, they may talk about, there's Skill Up opportunity besides. So that's one way. Paul, anything else to add?
Thank you, Frank. No, I think you covered it. The important point here is the coordination piece. On a monthly basis, the folks that do the Skill Up outreach, the Ohio Means Jobs folks, as well as the Greater Cleveland Partnerships business engagement team meet and discuss cases and coordinate their work. And I think that's a model for how coordination should work across silos. Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, not seeing any other immediate questions, I would suggest your pleasure as to additional use of American Rescue Plan discussion. I think you led us into some of that already. Did you want to call for any additional discussion on the American Rescue Plan before we move forward?
The only thing I would add is that I think it would be an early opportunity if anybody on this call has any suggestions. Jack already made one suggestion about process, which is good. If anybody has any thoughts about either process or specific initiatives or areas to focus on, we're just getting started here, so I'd love to hear what other thoughts people have.
There's a meeting that we'll be convening shortly with Jobs Ohio. Jobs Ohio has been thinking about this as well and has been contracting some consultants to get them ideas, in particular ideas that not only have economic impact, but also attract additional capital that they're intrigued by as well. And so we'll be inviting the county to participate in that meeting, which should be over the next week, to continue to sort of put ideas on the table.
Great.
And Armin, one thing we might go back and revisit, as you and I think, had some conversations with Nottingham Spurk, and it might even link over to Ray, was with the opioid dollars, the talk about creating an economic development fund around opioid solutions. The distance between the American Rescue Plan and the opioid problem, those are pretty closely joined to the hip. We've already found that the opioid problem accelerated during this last year's pandemic. And so I wonder if we could go back and revisit that concept of making Northeastern Ohio a creative and innovative hub for opiate solutions, whether they be through services or products or processes. I think that we, with our medical strong community and our ability to manufacture things, we could actually create some solutions that could be used for the opiate problem and also be a source for the American Rescue dollars that other states are also getting in there. So I think that, I know you and I talked about this before, and we actually had some candidates that were very interested in bringing their businesses potentially to Northeastern Ohio if we could show them a fund that was innovative around opiate solutions.
So I'm happy to follow up with you. Actually, give me a call when you have a chance. It's still been premature for me to sit down and go through in any detail, but to give you, since you raised it, it's not a subject that has been dropped. It's a subject that's been actively going on. I see Matt's on the call. I don't know if Matt is available, but so what we've done is we took the idea, which you and I discussed, for a fund, which just to fill out for people on the call who haven't heard about it, the concept would be an investment fund. County would put some money in from the opioids. We might be able to raise some money from other sources like Jumpstart. I know I talked to Ray a little bit about the possibility and others. The idea would be that we would look for a solution to the problem, to fund a solution. Right now, the funds we've had out there in conjunction with the council are really focused on treatment and education, which is important. And that's, I think, what the council expects most of the money, if not all the money, to go to. But if we could come up with a solution, and by solution, it could be anything. It could be, as the Cleveland Clinic mentioned, it could be virtual reality goggles that treat pain without medication, for example. Jack mentioned a company that would monitor and destroy unnecessary medications in hospitals to make sure that they're not used for other purposes than the intent. There's a host of ways to address the problem. And so what we've done is I've had conversations with folks from Jobs Ohio. They recommended a consultant. We've spoken to the consultant. The consultant is helping us. What we did was I went to the Cleveland Foundation, got some very initial funding to hire the consultant. Consultant's been working with us and is putting together a plan right now that we can then start to discuss. So it is very much on the table. I'm still very optimistic. I agree with you. It's a great idea. And the challenge will be, one, coming up with the right plan, and two, convincing council to support it. Counting on you for that.
Well, my point of bringing it up at this point was that we now have an influx of well over $200 million in addition. And is it possible that some of the American Rescue dollars could go into this, because we have seen a huge uptick in opiate deaths around the country during this pandemic? I didn't mean to think that anything had been dropped. A lot of things got deferred during this pandemic. And so it was more a question of, now that the timing is such and the monies have come in, is it time to revisit that, to include the American Rescue Plan to be a portion of what they would do? And perhaps you can now have two sources of funding, and Jobs Ohio and as far as all the other Team Neos and Ray Leach and all his good folks. It just seems to me the timing would be perfect.
Good thought. Anybody else have ideas for art money? I'm sure that we get requests every day now, mostly right now coming from social service and healthcare service organizations, because the need is so great. We've got requests from businesses needing help, from arts and culture groups needing help. So, there's huge need out there still, and it's very different than what Jack was just talking about, but it is important also. So I'm open to suggestions. And as Katie started with, we need to get community input and leadership input as well. But you all are leaders, so if you have any ideas.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have an idea yet, but I was invited last week to tour the Beachland Ballroom with a group that is trying to retain the Beachland Ballroom in Collinwood and sort of revive its ability to host live music. The pandemic obviously had some great impact there. So more to come after I've done the tour and heard more about what they're trying to do.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, if discussion is paused on this or has ceased for the moment, we're ready to move to the next segment and talk about updating our 5-year economic development plan.
Go there. No.
So let me just briefly review for the members of the commission. First, I want to thank the members. I think virtually everyone on this call gave time for their annual session where we have an interview, talk about the plan, receive recommendations, comments. Want to thank everyone for their very helpful input on that. You've received a draft of what we're going to transmit to County Council as required by the county charter right after the holiday weekend. It is a draft, and we take seriously in the Department of Development the charter provision that says shall consult with the Economic Development Commission. So additional comments are more than welcome, either here at this table today or even later. I will not be leaving town for the holiday weekend. Will be available should a great thought occur to someone as they're doing their Saturday golf outing or whatever folks are doing this holiday weekend. But we will be turning in our version to County Council on Tuesday as required. I do have left on the agenda a couple introductions, or I should say reintroductions, from folks that are going to work with the Department of Development over the next year to further refine this plan. So I want to first ask, before I have Dr. Sutton, Dr. Messiah, and the CPC people come on, if there are any burning issues commission members want to make sure we don't lose in terms of direction of the plan. And if not, we'll, perhaps what you're about to hear from the academic folks, the planning folks may spark some additional thoughts or comments. So at this point, I want to reintroduce, I briefly introduced at the last meeting, two fellows from Baldwin Wallace, Dr. Christian Messiah, Dr. Tom Sutton. We now have them under contract to work with us over the next year, and they're going to focus on some of the economic measures that are called out in our 5-year economic development plan. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce, I believe, Christian, you're going to speak first.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Paul, and thanks for the commission for having us. Paul, is it possible for me to share my screen now?
I believe you can share. If not, the guy that's running the Zoom will try to make it possible.
Okay. Let me try and share my screen right quick.
I see it.
All right, let me actually get the PowerPoint slide going. Okay.
We're seeing some track and field results right now, Dr. Messiah.
It was in my background. Did you see my my screen now with the PowerPoint slide?
We're still seeing your NCAA events.
Where is this? Let me stop sharing and share again. And sharing one of my screen is not the right one. Let me try again.
Dr. Messiah will not tell you this, but I will share with you that he is a 4-time track Olympian for the country of Ghana, his birthplace. So that might explain the NCAA listings that you saw on that screen.
That is not good. All right, let me try one more time and see if it will work. I'll just share the screen without actually doing the PowerPoint presentation itself so that it will not be in the way. So the plan, basically, we have two plans. Our plan first is to do a short-term kind of work, which will deliver on June 1st with the 5-year plan that Paul's group is going to present. The second one will be more of a intermediate long-term plan for the next year, where we are going to be looking at different things. So I want to go through quickly and talk about what we are doing for the June 1st report. We are going to keep the 7 indicators that the previous group were working on intact, but we are going to update some of the existing graphs and also add more data to what is out there. However, we also feel that some of the measures that are being used are not holistic enough to capture all the ideas that they were trying to capture. For example, when you talk about economic inclusion, the only thing that is there has to do with the labor force. There are other aspects of economic inclusion that can be looked at. The other part is also the population issue. We only were tracking the changes in the population, which is good, but we feel that there are other aspects that can be added. We propose that maybe in the next year, we add some things about the nonprofit sector in Cuyahoga County to the existing measures to make it 8. Because we feel that one of the things that make Northeast Ohio tick is the area of nonprofit. So that's one of our proposals. So the 7 indicators, as you can see, opportunity index, entrepreneurship, business attraction, growth of existing business, the workforce development, economic inclusion, and the population dynamics are the 7 that we're going to keep for the short-term report. On the screen right now, you should see The opportunity index, we're not going to change anything about it. We're just going to update the data and forecast up to 2025. Similarly, entrepreneurship, we're not going to do anything. However, for business attraction for the June 1st report, we are going to eliminate the portion that presented the forecast that was designed for if Amazon was to relocate to Cuyahoga County, which is not happening, so we need to change that. The next one is the growth of existing business. We initially, the CSU group had combined the companies that are adding business and also the data for how many jobs that creates. And we feel that adding those two is a little bit confusing in the graph, so we're going to split that. And also the other part that we are going to try, we're going to be doing is add two different types of forecasts, one that take into consideration the pandemic and the other one that will look at current trends only. With the workforce development, we are going to include more professions. Initially, CSU only was reporting on IT, manufacturing, and healthcare. We are going to add business management and also the life sciences to capture a whole market issue for the county. We are also going to include total entry demand and basically compare the gap for entry jobs as against gap for higher level jobs. We feel that if we are going to be trying to go ahead to attract people or put dollars into training students or training people to take entry jobs, what if it's not the entry jobs that we need? What if it's a higher level job? So we want to capture that too. We are going to also include a graph that shows the actual alignment gap for each profession. For economic inclusion, there will be no change. Population dynamics, we are going to include a graph for cumulative change since 2010 to 2019, and also include a graph that explains the sources of the cumulative change. So this is the new workforce development talent gap graph that's going to be included in the June 1st report. So instead of just having IT, healthcare, and manufacturing, we have added the life sciences, finance and business services, and management. And we have also included the entry-level demand. Initially, the reports were only capturing the total demand, but we wanted to make sure that we capture both the entry level and the total demand. This is the new graph that we're also going to be adding. This shows the actual talent gap. And you see that some areas we have a positive gap and some areas we do have a negative gap. And the gap will be total alignment as against entry level. So for example, if you look at life sciences, you see that the entry level, we have a positive gap. So if we were to look at life sciences, education, and engineering, we don't need to do much there. However, if we are looking at higher level jobs, there is a negative gap of 2,426 jobs that we need to fill. So that's part of the thing that we were trying to capture.
Christian, can I pause you for a question on this? Yeah. So I'm wondering, because Team NEO has also done some recent reporting about the alignment or lack of alignment of both sectors and training. How does this work? Either build on, or is it complementary to or similar to the work that Team NEO is doing, if you're aware?
The data is actually from Team NEO.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, our plan is never to duplicate efforts.
Right, good. Just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, our plan is to, if we need new data, we'll go out there and do it. But if there are existing data, we work with the county's partners to actually do all the work. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Similarly, on the jobs and population data, are we going to be able to disaggregate what types of jobs and what levels of pay those jobs when we look at?
We can disaggregate the types of the job, but not the pay from the Northeast Ohio data. So far, what that we know, but we can go back to them and ask, because Tom, Dr. Sadler and I were talking about actually this talent gap, if I get to the long-term plan, you see, we want to actually break it out and look at only the county instead of looking at the whole Northeast Ohio. So that the county can better focus on what the county wants to do rather than for the whole Northeast Ohio. And part of that could be what you are talking about, Brian, looking at the jobs and what kind of salaries they come with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the next one is the new jobs that I was talking about. You see that, for example, the red line is Cuyahoga County. And if we go by current trend, the broken lines on the top will be the that. But if we include the pandemic forecast, that gives us the lower end. So we try to separate out the number of companies that are creating new jobs from how many jobs those companies are actually creating with the new positions that they're creating, which in the initial report were combined, and it's hard to see if we combine them with these two new forecasts. Now, the next thing here is the cumulative population change. We try to compare Cuyahoga County to the benchmark counties that have been used in the past. So this is a new graph that you will see in the new report. And you see that out of all the benchmarks, the only one we are beating is Wayne County, Detroit. And the rest of them our numbers are not that great with keeping our population. Now, the question is, what is causing this population change? We looked at the history behind this, and it looks like the issue is keeping our domestic residents. It's not from natural increase because our beds still are beating our debts. So you can tell right there, 70% of the change since 2010 has been because people are moving away from Cuyahoga County. So that's a question that we need to be looking at going forward. Now, for the long-term plans.
Christian, can I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir.
As you're diving into that data, it would be interesting to know maybe at least a few things. One would be if there's a way to break this out by age demographic, in terms of migration, domestic migration patterns. And the second would be, to see what intra-regional migration looks like versus leaving the greater Cleveland region altogether.
Okay, so the inter-regional one, I know for sure we can do it because there is county to county migration data that we can look at. And I suspect that you're right, that a lot of it probably is county to county because a lot of people, for example, move, when they want to build homes now, they move out of Cuyahoga County because they all talk about the taxes and all that stuff. So yes, you may be right. Yeah. So we have to look at that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, in terms of the long-term ideas, the opportunity index we think captures a lot of things, so we keep it as that. But for something like the entrepreneurship index, we will keep the annual business stats that was originally used, but we want to add new things, including the number of business applications for the year, the number of private establishments we can even dive down to, even if we want to, what industries does the county want to target and things like that. New patent assignments, we want to include all of that in an index that can give us a better holistic view of entrepreneurship activities in the county. With business attraction, similarly, we're going to keep the annual jobs attractive, which comes from the Northeast Ohio, Team Neo data set, but we are going to try and include other things. Human capital. So for example, what percentage of our population has some level of education that we feel is important to drive the economy, infrastructure endowment, accessibility, because all of these things that are listed here are things that actually attracts companies. So we want to look at what attracts companies, not just when they get here, what they do. So that will be the business attraction index that we propose to create in the future. With the business growth, currently the only thing that is being looked at is the number of the businesses that added employment. We want to look at we want to look past that, including the young firms. How many jobs are they creating? New jobs they are creating. The trader sector. How good are we doing there? The number of firms, the number of establishments, and all of this new list of things that we want to include. I don't want to talk about every one of them, but you get the gist of what we are trying to do. Create a much more holistic index. Workforce development. Similarly, we're still going to keep the Team Neo demand versus credentials awarded. However, we are going to see if we can drill down to only Cuyahoga County, as I mentioned earlier on. We also will include information from the short-term plan, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the things that we're going to do in the short-term plan, we're going to add that. But most importantly, we want to also look at the percentage of jobs that are created in the strategic sectors for the county. Now, economic inclusion index. Yes, we are still going to keep the racial differences in the labor force participation rate, unemployment rate, and the median earnings. However, we want to also include other things that look more, actually drill down more into the economic inclusion. So for example, what percentage of the new jobs that are created are being done by minorities? Initially, my thought was, to broaden this whole inclusion and not to just look at gender and racial differences. But I think we're going to still keep the focus on there and look at those differences within these new contexts of data that we are trying to include. The population dynamics, initially, the only thing that was looked at, as I have mentioned, is the percentage change in population for Cuyahoga County using 2010 as an index. We are going to keep that, but we also want to include things like what you call population diversity, the average age of the working population, even looking at what percent of migrants that come into Cuyahoga County has what type of skill. We believe that we're going to be filling the gaps in what our population cannot deliver. We should look at who is coming in, what kind of credentials are they coming in? Is that helpful or not? Should we be attracting a different type of people? So that is basically what we are going to be looking at. And the new thing that, as I mentioned, we want to add, which Tom can add a little bit on this, is the activities of nonprofits. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Christian. In our discussions with Paul, we thought perhaps including some information, and there are many references to this in the 5-year economic development plan, but specifically the nonprofit sector defined broadly, everything from your social service nonprofits to certainly the arts and culture areas. Clearly, the county through the Arts and Culture Initiative offers a lot of public support for the arts and culture, but it operates on different levels. One is simply a jobs issue. We know it generates a lot of economic development, particularly in neighborhoods that have resurged. The reference earlier, Brian, to the question about Beachland Ballroom, which anecdotally was the last public space I was in before COVID-19 hit, enjoying the squirrel nut zippers, but we'll leave that one alone for the moment. But how that has affected particularly hard-hit areas as a generator for neighborhood resurgence. The other is looking at this not just as an economic sector, but quality of life. So when you're trying to attract people to the region, we know that attraction is there, and people like the metro parks, they like the arts and culture, and also the supportive services. But how does that then get packaged, as in many references there are to the county becoming a leader in these areas? And I can tell you anecdotally from our own experience at BW, we have hundreds of students every year that are coming into liberal arts programs, arts management, the conservatory, who really want to stay in the region and are looking for jobs in those areas. And we have a rich environment for them to work in. But now if we can sort of systematically start to track that, I think that'll help with what we're doing with the measures for the plan.
Apologies for being muted. Let me note, I've just emailed this presentation to everyone registered for this meeting so that you can have, for your viewing pleasure, to review the slides that were presented and discussed. If there's no other immediate comments in respect to the time, I would want to turn very briefly to reintroduce two folks from the County Planning Commission who are going to be working with us over the next year to further refine the 5-year plan. Mary and Patrick, we have just a few minutes here to reintroduce you to this commission.
Hello, thank you. Yes, in the essence of time, we will just be brief. I am Mary Serby. I am Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission. I joined the team in January, and we have had several discussions with Department of Development and how we can find opportunities to work together more in the future. And we feel this economic development plan is going to be a really big opportunity for us to help coordinate with that and work with Baldwin Wallace and the Department of Development and providing some updates. With us too is my colleague Patrick. Want to introduce yourself? Oh,
Can't hear you, Pat.
While Patrick unmutes, I will note that.
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Patrick, here we go.
Well, now I can't hear all of you. And I've been waiting for an hour and a half and missed the microphone, but very nice to meet you all. We're excited. We have a number of major projects, including our data book series that we think could be very much of assistance as part of the economic development planning. And we also have our history of place-based economic development work that we think can continue to grow as we think about plans for local municipalities and local economic development strategies. So looking forward to work together.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. And let me just note on a side note, if Director Mary Serby, and I'm sorry, I'm mastering the name.
That's okay.
Because she was with Team NEO most recently. So I would say this brings an additional welcome awareness of the importance of economic development to the work of our Planning Commission. We're looking forward to that.
Thank you, Paul.
In respect to the time, again, Chairman Arman, back to you, sir. If you wanted to call for any final comments before we adjourn.
I'm happy to do that. It is late. Anybody have anything else they wanted to add? If not, then I will simply. What was that? I will simply thank you all again for spending the time with us and your contributions, and look forward to your input. We're asking them for input on the 5-year plan.
Yes, so any additional comments beyond what we've already discussed, feel free to send directly to my attention. We do have a upcoming June 1st deadline, which we're going to meet. So I'd ask for those comments to be sent, by the weekend, if at all possible. Thank you.
And we're giving you a lot of time, a few days, so get your comments in as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I see Jack's hand go up.
Oh, no, I just, so move. All right.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wave or something. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Right on time. Wow.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.